Welcome to the Feminist Park podcast. I'm Kwame.
And I'm Leilani. It's great to be kicking off this journey with you all today.
Yeah, we're diving into work that's really closely tied to the vision behind the Feminist Park project.
Imagining these truly equitable public spaces, starting with the idea for an intersectional feminist park right here in Berlin.
Exactly. And this podcast, well, it's kind of an extension of that. We're going to be digging into the academic research that, supports and informs that kind of vision.
We'll be taking these dense, sometimes quite academic papers and really pulling out the core and insights.
And looking at them through specific lenses, things like environmental justice, intersectionality, anti-colonial thought, queer theory.
All the stuff that helps us think critically about space. All right, I want you to just close your eyes for a second. Even if you're commuting or, washing dishes, just take a mental step back.
Okay.
Picture this scenario. It's a Tuesday, a typical, just chaotic midweek Tuesday.
The worst kind of Tuesday.
Exactly. You're rushing. Maybe you just got off the subway. The air is all humid. The city noises. It's loud.
Yep.
Or maybe you're speed walking to some high-stakes meeting across town.
You're focused.
Completely. You've got a coffee in one hand that's like dangerously close to spilling. Your phone is buzzing in the other. You are 100% focused on your schedule, running through that to-do list in your head, and then the sensation hits.
Right. That specific, undeniable, visceral sensation, the drop in your stomach, the sudden dampness, the realization that your period has started.
Right now.
Right now.
Yeah.
Not tomorrow when the app said it would. Now.
And instantly, your entire world it shrinks.
It does. It's instantaneous panic. You are not thinking about your meeting anymore. You're not thinking about the email you need to send to your boss.
You're doing a frantic, high-stakes, tactical scan of the neighborhood. It's like, the Terminator scanning for threats, but you're scanning for a restroom.
Where is the nearest one?
Is it that hip coffee shop on the corner with the line out the door?
And do I have to buy a $5 muffin just to get the code for the door?
Exactly. Or is it that public restroom in the park that you usually try to avoid?
Is it clean? Is it even safe?
Do I have supplies in my bag, or did I leave them in my other coat?
And the big one, the one that really brings on the anxiety.
Yeah.
If I go in there, will the person in the next stall hear me opening the wrapper?
That split-second calculation it's exhausting. It feels like such a personal disaster. Like, I'm messed up. I'm an adult. Why wasn't I prepared?
Why is this happening to me?
Right.
But here's the thing we need to understand right off the bat, and this is really the core of our deep dive today. That panic. It isn't a personal failure. It is a design failure. That moment where you freeze, where you can't move forward until you solve this biological puzzle. Researchers Tooley and Chopra have a specific academic name for it.
Oh, really?
They call it menstrual immobility.
Menstrual immobility.
Yeah.
Wow, that sounds intense.
It's literal. It's not just a metaphor. The infrastructure of the world around you is absolutely stopping you from participating in public life.
It stops you in your tracks.
Literally. If you cannot find a space to manage your body, you physically cannot continue your day. You have to go home. You have to leave the public sphere.
That is exactly what we're digging into today. We're looking at a whole stack of research that is going to, I think, completely change the way you look at a city street forever.
For sure.
We aren't just, complaining about long lines for the ladies' room. We are going deep. We've got a global audit of public toilets in 6 major cities, places like New York, Osaka, Rio de Janeiro.
A huge range.
We have intimate, handwritten diaries from women navigating cities in Turkey.
And we have some pretty heavy-hitting philosophy on what it even means to, simply exist in a body.
And we're going to use all of that data and all that theory to do something, I hope, constructive. We're not just here to deconstruct the problem.
We're going to try and build a solution.
We're calling it the Feminist Park.
Right. We are going to engage in a bit of, let's call it speculative design. If we were to build a public space, a park, a plaza, a city center that was truly designed for liberation, designed to accommodate the biological reality of menstruation rather than punish it.
What would that actually look like?
What would it feel like?
And we're not guessing here. This isn't just a thought experiment. We're basing this blueprint on the data. We have papers by Nguyen, Blake, and their colleagues who literally inspected hundreds of toilets with clipboards in hand.
We've got the philosophical framework from Kelland and their team on how we exist in our bodies.
And we have those mobile diary studies from Inequality.
So our mission today is, I think, pretty simple. We are going to uncover how current urban design enforces what's called a concealment imperative, and we'll definitely get into that. And then we're going to blueprint the menstrual-friendly public toilet.
The MFPT,
The MFPT. It needs an acronym.
of course. So before we start installing hooks and sinks in our imaginary park, we have to understand the root of the problem, because it feels so much bigger than just plumbing.
Oh, it's way bigger.
You brought Kelland and their team to the table, and they talk about this idea of the body in situation.
Yeah, this is really the theoretical backbone of the whole discussion. Callan's paper came out in 2017, and they use what's called a feminist phenomenological framework.
Okay, pause right there. Feminist phenomenological framework.
Mm-hmm.
That is a mouthful. It sounds like something you'd need a PhD to decipher.
It does. It sounds super dense.
They break that down for us.
It's actually very intuitive once you strip away the academic jargon. So phenomenology is just the study of experience, how we experience the world from a first-person perspective.
What does it feel like to be here?
Exactly that. And the feminist part just means we're looking at that experience specifically through the lens of gendered bodies. So Kelland makes this really critical distinction between two modes of existence.
Okay.
The body as situation and the body in situation.
Okay, let's tackle them one by one. Body as situation. What's that?
The body as situation is just the biological facts. It's the hardware. If you menstruate, you bleed. That is the reality.
Simple enough.
It requires management. You have to change products. You have to wash. You might have cramps. Your hormone levels might fluctuate. It's universal. It's just what the body does.
Right. It's not good or bad.
It just is. It's a biological situation you are in.
So it's like needing to sleep or needing to eat or your hair growing. It's just mechanics.
Precisely. It's the baseline. But then you have the body in situation.
And this is where the trouble starts.
This is where the conflict happens. The situation here is the external world. The material world, the buildings, the laws, the social habits, the layout of the city.
The world we have to navigate.
Right. And Kelland uses this amazing phrase for it, the practico-inert reality.
The practico-inert. I like that. It sounds heavy.
It is heavy. Think of it as the hardened shell of history that we live inside. Buildings, streets, sewers, the width of a doorway, the height of a sink.
All the stuff that's already there.
It's all there. All of this was designed by people in the past, and now it's inert. It's solid. It's really hard to change. And Kelland argues that this external situation, this practico-inert world, is historically designed for a neutral subject.
And let me guess who the neutral subject is.
Well, in urban planning, architecture, design history, neutral has almost always meant a non-menstruating, cisgender, able-bodied male.
Of course.
That's the default setting for the world.
So the situation we're living in, the city, wasn't built for the situation our body is in.
That is the fundamental clash. When the environment, the situation clashes with the biology, it limits freedom. It creates friction.
It makes everything harder.
It does. And Kelland argues this restricts women's and menstruators' ability to engage in what they call important life projects.
Important life projects. That sounds very grand, like, writing a symphony or curing a disease.
It can be grand. It absolutely can be leading a protest in a public square or running for office. But it's also the mundane.
Like what?
An important life project is anything that gives your life meaning or just sustains you. It could be holding down a job at a factory. It could be going to university.
It could be just sitting in a park reading a book.
Exactly. Just sitting in a park, reading a book for an hour to decompress. That is an important life project.
Right. And if I'm sitting in that park and I'm worrying about bleeding through my jeans because there's no bathroom anywhere nearby, I'm not really reading the book.
You're not. You are distracted. You're anxious. Your focus is split. If you are constantly scanning for a toilet because the environment doesn't support your biology, you aren't free to focus on those projects.
You're tethered.
You are.
That brings us right back to that menstrual immobility idea. You're physically tethered to the few spaces where you can manage this private biological event. It's like having a really, really short leash.
And that leash is completely invisible to people who don't menstruate. That's the tricky part, right? If you are that neutral male subject, the city feels open, it feels free, you can go anywhere. But for the menstruator, The city is a minefield of potential embarrassments and logistical hurdles.
And this is the thing. It's not just a feeling. It's not just a philosophy. We have hard data on this. I think that's what makes this deep dive so compelling. We can actually measure this exclusion.
We can. Let's get into the numbers, because I think people assume, well, surely in big modern cities this is solved.
Maybe in rural areas it's tough, but in a metropolis,
Exactly. You expect a certain baseline.
you expect a certain level of, I don't know, civilization in a city center.
Well, prepare to be disappointed. Let's look at the study by Meng Win and their team, and also Blake and their colleagues, published in 2025. This was a massive undertaking.
This wasn't just a survey.
No, they didn't just send out a digital survey asking people, do you like the bathrooms? They conducted a rigorous physical global audit. Researchers went out, boots on the ground, and physically inspected 181 public toilets.
Across where?
Across 6 very different cities: Barcelona, Kampala, Manila, New York City, Osaka, and Rio de Janeiro.
Wow, okay, that is a huge range. You've got different economic levels, different cultures, different continents.
Mm-hmm.
New York and Osaka are wealthy, high-tech cities. Kampala and Manila face completely different infrastructure challenges. What were they actually looking for? How do you grade a toilet?
So they created the MFPT index, the menstrual-friendly public toilet index. They wanted to create a standardized score.
So it's comparable across cities.
Right. They scored each toilet on a whole range of criteria: privacy, cleanliness, availability of water inside the stall, disposal bins, safety, locks that actually work, lighting.
So a perfect score, a 1, what does that mean?
A perfect score would be a 1.
So 1 isn't like a luxury spa with scented candles and calming music.
Not at all. A 1 is just functional.
Oh.
Correct. A 1 is baseline functionality. It means you can manage your period safely and with dignity. That's the bar.
How did the world do?
The overall mean score across all of those cities
Mm-hmm.
was 0.67.
0.67.
Yep.
So that's a solid D-. That's a failing grade.
It's an absolute failure. And remember, this average includes wealthy, powerful cities like New York and Osaka.
Right.
Even in places with immense resources, the infrastructure failed to fully support menstruators. A 0.67 means, maybe there's a door, but the lock is broken.
Or there's a toilet, but no bin.
Or sink, but it's outside in the hallway, so you have to walk out with blood on your hands.
But here's where it gets really interesting for me, and honestly, a bit infuriating. The study didn't just find that toilets were bad everywhere. They found a pattern.
They did. Nguyen's study found a really distinct disparity in where the better toilets were located. They mapped the scores against the type of neighborhood.
I have a feeling I know the answer, but tell me.
Business districts. Toilets in central business areas scored significantly higher on the menstrual friendliness scale than toilets in residential areas or in transit hubs.
Okay, let's really sit with that for a second.
Yeah.
If I am in a suit, going to work, contributing to the economy, spending money at lunch, the city provides me with a decent place to manage my period.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm at home, in my own neighborhood, or commuting on a bus, I'm out of luck.
That is the implication. It suggests we prioritize the biological needs of the worker or the consumer, but not the citizen.
Wow.
It is a class issue and an economic issue completely disguised as a plumbing oversight. If you aren't spending money or making money, your comfort and your liberation is a lower priority for the city planners.
That is such a stark way to frame it. It's not just, we forgot to put a bin in. It's, we value you less when you aren't generating GDP.
Precisely. The practico-inert city is built for commerce, not for care.
Okay, so we have the theoretical framework. The city isn't built for us. We have the data. The toilets are failing, especially if you're not in a business district. Now, I want to move into the specific lenses.
Yeah.
Because if we are building this feminist park, it can't just be for one type of woman, right?
Absolutely not.
It has to work for everyone.
Absolutely. We have to apply an intersectional analysis. We can't design a solution if we don't understand specific nuances of the problem for different groups.
Right.
A white, middle-class woman in an office building faces completely different barriers than a trans man, or a woman experiencing homelessness, or a migrant worker. The experience is not monolithic.
So let's start with the feminist and gender perspective. We talked about the panic of the rapper noise earlier. It seems like such a small thing, but it takes up so much mental space.
It's huge. In the source material, specifically the chapter by Wood, they discuss the concealment imperative.
The concealment imperative. That sounds like a spy novel title, but it's much more oppressive.
It really is. It is the social mandate that you must hide your period at all costs. It's not just about hygiene. It's about shame. Women are socialized from a very young age to view menstruation as a blemish on their character, something that ruins their image of being clean and controlled.
So if you leak, it's not just an accident, it's a character flaw.
You failed. You failed to control your body.
This showed up in a Filthy study in Turkey, right? The mobile diaries.
Yes, that was a fascinating qualitative study, just so rich. Filthy asked women to keep mobile diaries, basically voicing their thoughts or writing notes in real time of their experiences in public while menstruating.
And what did they find?
The entries are just heartbreakingly practical.
Yeah.
Participants explicitly reported choosing menstrual products based on which packaging rustled less.
Think about the mental energy that takes. You're standing in a pharmacy aisle, literally crinkling packages to see which one is the quietest.
So a stranger in a public restroom doesn't know you're bleeding.
That is wild.
It's exhausting. One participant wrote about waiting in the stall until the other woman left the restroom entirely before she would dare to open her pad, just to avoid the sound being heard.
She trapped herself in the stall.
Yes. That is menstrual immobility in action. She is literally immobile because of the social shame.
And the audit by Nguyen and the team backed this up with architectural evidence. They found a widespread lack of product disposal bins inside the stalls.
This is a critical design failure. I think it's one of the most obvious ones.
This is my biggest pet peeve.
Yeah.
You are in the stall, you change your product, and then there's nothing, just empty space.
Right. So now you have a used product. It's messy. You have to wrap it in toilet paper, wasting paper, by the way, which is a whole other
It's
issue.
a lot of toilet paper.
And then you exit the stall, walk past the sinks where other people are washing their hands or checking their makeup, and find the communal trash can.
Yeah.
You are forced to violate the concealment imperative,
You are forced to display your waste to the public.
which causes that spike in anxiety. You feel exposed. You feel ashamed.
Exactly. So for our feminist part, the first non-negotiable design element is what?
A lidded, lined bin inside every single stall. It seems so small, but it is actually a tool against shame.
It's an emotional tool.
It is. It allows for the concealment that society demands, but more importantly, it offers privacy and dignity. You handle your business, you dispose of it, and you leave. No audience required.
Okay, so lidded bins are on the blueprint. Check. Now let's widen the lens. We call it the feminist park, but menstruation isn't just a women's issue.
Not at all.
We need to look at this through a queer theory perspective. How does our park handle gender diversity?
This is crucial. The sources, particularly Frank and Delaria and also Chris Waller, highlight how dangerous public restrooms can be for trans men and non-binary people who menstruate.
Because public restrooms are usually the most strictly gendered spaces in our society.
They are.
You have the door with a little stick figure and a skirt, and the door without the skirt. We are obsessed with sorting people at the bathroom door.
We are. And that binary, that obsession, creates a literal safety hazard. Chrysler's research reported that over 60% of trans or masculine of gender participants feel unsafe in restrooms while menstruating.
60%. That's the majority. That means for more than half of that population, going to the bathroom is a fear-inducing event.
It is. Imagine you're a trans man. You pass as male, you have a beard, you dress in masculine clothing. You use the men's room because that aligns with your gender and is generally safer for you socially.
Okay.
But you have your period.
And men's rooms usually don't have bins. They don't have the infrastructure.
They don't. And there's the sound issue again, but magnified. If you are in a men's room, which is often quieter, surprisingly, less chatter, and you open a pad wrapper or you have to dispose of a product.
You risk being outed.
Exactly. And in a gender-segregated space, being outed can lead to verbal harassment or severe physical violence.
So the concealment imperative here isn't just about shame, it's about survival.
Precisely. It can be life or death for some people.
Yeah.
And that's not all. Frank and Delaria also talk about the dysphoria.
What do they mean by that?
Imagine walking into a space that is plastered with feminine hygiene signage. Everything is pink-washed, the products have floral names. If you are a man who menstruates or you're non-binary, that environment is actively telling you that you don't exist or that your body is wrong. It's a constant, painful invalidation.
So how does the feminist park solve this? We can't just put a bin in the men's room and call it a day. That doesn't solve the outing risk.
No, that's Band-Aid. The design solution, which comes up in the Blake et al. Findings, is clear. We need gender-neutral, single-stall facilities.
So not a big room with lots of stalls, but individual rooms.
Individual, fully enclosed rooms.
With floor-to-ceiling privacy.
Floor-to-ceiling walls,
What?
solid doors, no gaps. a fully enclosed space. This completely removes the gender policing at the door.
Right, there's no one to police.
It removes the fear of the rapper sound being heard by a potentially hostile neighbor. It creates a neutral space where anyone can manage their bodily functions without their gender identity being scrutinized.
So no more stalls with those giant gaps where you can make awkward eye contact with the person next to you. Just private rooms.
Yes.
That sounds better for everyone, honestly.
It really is. It's a great example of how designing for the most marginalized group often improves the experience for the majority. I don't think anyone, regardless of gender, likes the stall gaps.
No one likes the gaps.
We only have them because they're cheaper to build.
It's purely a cost-saving measure that costs us our dignity. Okay, let's talk about money. We touched on it with the business districts, but let's go deeper into the class and socioeconomic perspective. Bleeding is expensive.
It is. Holst and their colleagues discuss period poverty extensively. We often think of period poverty as just, I can't afford pads, and that is very real. But Holst points out that price also dictates choice. If you can't afford the high-quality, high-absorbency pads, you buy the cheap ones. The ones that might leak, the ones that might need changing much more often.
And you need the toilet more often.
Exactly. You are more tethered, you have to check more frequently, you're more anxious. And Nguyen's audit found this really disturbing trend, particularly in New York City and in Europe.
Which was?
The pay-to-pee problem, or the customer-only problem.
Restrooms are for customers only. I see that sign in my nightmares. Or the keypad on the door where the code is on the bottom of the receipt.
It effectively criminalizes a biological function for the poor. It puts a price on dignity. If you cannot buy a coffee, you cannot manage your period. You are barred from the infrastructure.
And then there's the issue of homelessness. The Palgrave Handbook has chapters by McCarthy and Lahiri Dutt that touch on this. If you're experiencing homelessness, you don't have a private bathroom at home to retreat to. The public toilet is your only toilet.
And McCarthy notes that women experiencing homelessness often have to perform non-menstruation. They have to pass as normal to avoid stigma and disgust from others, but they lack the private spaces to wash clothes or themselves.
So if you stain your clothes and you don't have a home, where do you go? How do you reset?
The challenges are just monumental.
So for the feminist park, we can't have coin-operated turnstiles.
Absolutely not. The feminist park must be free to enter. And based on Nguyen's finding, this number is just shocking.
What is it?
They found that only 2.8% of the 181 audited toilets had free menstrual products available.
Wait, 2.8%. I want to make sure I heard that right.
2.8.
That is functionally zero. That's a rounding error.
It's nothing. Across 6 major global cities, it is basically non-existent.
So our park needs to provide free products.
It has to. Think about it. We provide toilet paper. We don't charge a quarter for a square of toilet paper because we recognize it as a biological necessity. Why do we charge for a pad? Why is one biological excretion subsidized by the state and the other one taxed and sold?
It's the neutral male subject again. He needs toilet paper, so it's there. He doesn't need pads, so they aren't.
Exactly. The budget follows the body of the decision maker.
Okay, moving on to the migrant and racial justice perspective. We have sources discussing informal settlements and displacement. Thule and Chopra did work in Delhi, and we have the Palgrave chapters on this. How does this fit into our park?
This connects to the concept of surveillance and what we consider home. We tend to assume that privacy equals home. You go home to handle your business.
Sure.
But in informal settlements or crowded migrant housing, privacy is often a complete illusion. You might be living with extended family, with in-laws, in very, very close quarters.
So the home isn't necessarily a private sanctuary.
Not at all. Lahiri Dutt makes this great point that a lot of menstrual hygiene management campaigns, MHM campaigns, push this idea of private management. Just go to your bathroom and handle it.
But that assumes you have a private bathroom.
It assumes a Western middle-class home layout. In many crowded living situations, you are constantly under surveillance by your kin network. You can't just sneak away with a pad without everyone knowing what you're doing.
And it becomes a public event within the private home.
Exactly. And this is where Thule and Chopra introduced this beautiful concept of the third space.
The third space.
It's a liminal space. It's not home where your family watches you, and it's not work where your boss or colleagues watch you. It's a space in between, a safe space where you can just be.
Where you can manage your body without surveillance.
Yes, a place to wash, to rest, to manage, without having to explain yourself to anyone. A place of refuge.
So the feminist park acts as this third space. It's a sanctuary for people who don't have privacy elsewhere.
It is, and it needs to be culturally sensitive. The Palgrave sources discuss how some Western biomedical approaches can alienate indigenous or non-Western practices.
Right.
So this space shouldn't feel like a sterile hospital. It shouldn't feel clinical. It should feel like a community resource, a place where you are safe from the gaze.
That's powerful. Okay, finally, let's talk about the ableism and disability justice perspective. We've all seen the accessible stall. It's usually the big one at the end of the row.
And here's the conflict. Blake and their team highlight this perfectly. Often, the only toilet that is actually menstrual-friendly is the accessible stall.
Because it has more space.
Space is huge.
Mm.
If you are changing a menstrual cup or if you have a heavy flow and you need to undress partially to avoid staining your clothes, you need room to maneuver.
The standard economy stall is often so small your knees hit the door.
You're doing contortions, you can't squat, you can't turn around easily.
And the sink. That's another thing.
Sometimes the accessible stall is the only one with a sink inside, or at least near it. If you're using a reusable cup, you need to rinse it. You cannot walk out to the communal sinks with a bloody cup.
No, that violates the concealment imperative and exposes you to so much stigma.
So menstruators flock to the accessible stall. I've done it. I know I've done it.
We all have. You see that big open stall and you think, thank God, room to breathe.
We all do. But that creates a tension. By occupying the accessible stall, we potentially block it for people with mobility aids who physically cannot use the other stalls.
Right.
We are pitting one marginalized need against another. We're making the person with the wheelchair wait because the person with the period needs the sink. It's a design-induced conflict.
So what's the solution? We can't just have one good stall.
The solution is universal design.
Okay.
In the feminist park, all stalls should meet the spatial and utility standards of the accessible stall.
All of them.
All of them. Every stall should be large enough to maneuver in. Every stall should have a sink or a water source. We shouldn't segregate access to one corner of the room. Access should be the default.
I love that. Universal design means better design for everyone. The parent with the stroller, the person with luggage, the menstruator, and the wheelchair user. Everyone wins. Nobody has to feel bad for taking up the special stall.
Exactly. When you design for the margins, the center benefits too.
Okay, so we've analyzed the problems through these lenses. We've dismantled the current failure of design. Now, I want to do something fun. I want to mentally construct the interior of a cubicle in the feminist park.
Let's do it.
I want to build the blueprint, item by item, based on that MFPT index from Gwyn and Blake.
All right. We are walking into the cubicle. What is the first thing we need?
Based on the reading, it seems like the most requested item is also the simplest, a hook.
The hook and the shelf, yes. Blake's paper highlights this as a major failure point in current designs. It sounds so trivial. It's a $5 piece of hardware.
But think about the logistics. You walk in, you have a bag, you have a coat, maybe you have a shopping bag.
And the floor is questionable.
The floor is likely wet or dirty or sticky. You cannot put your things on the floor.
But you need 2 hands to manage menstruation. You need to unwrap products, adjust clothing, clean yourself. If you are balancing your bag on your knees or clenching it between your teeth, which people actually report doing.
Wait, really? Between their teeth?
Yes. You are stressed, you are physically restricted, you are juggling.
And you're immobile.
A simple hook and a small shelf for your phone or your supplies is a tool of liberation. It frees your hands. It grants you the agency to manage your body comfortably.
When the basic seems like a luxury, that's the title of Blake's paper, and it fits perfectly here.
It's the whole thesis. Why is a shelf a luxury? It shouldn't be.
Okay, item number 2 on the blueprint, the mirror.
This comes from the Nguyen audit and also Ifilti's diaries. The fear of leakage.
The constant twisting and turning to check your backside. We've all done the check me dance with a friend. Do I have anything on my jeans?
Right, but what if you're alone? Most mirrors are outside, above the communal sinks.
So if you stained your trousers, you don't want to find that out in the common area where everyone can see you.
You want to check before you exit the private space.
So the feminist park has a full-length mirror inside the private cubicle.
It is essential. It provides reassurance. It allows you to fix a problem before it becomes a public spectacle. It lowers the heart rate.
Item number 3, water.
Yes. We touched on this with disability access, but Thule and Chopra emphasize this too. Water in the cubicle.
Not just in the main area.
Right. If you get blood on your hands, which happens, it can be a messy process, you need to wash them immediately. The bloody hands walk of shame to the communal sink is a major source of anxiety.
It's the stuff of nightmares.
Yeah.
Opening the door with your elbow, trying to hide your hands.
A small sprayer, like a bidet sprayer, or a tiny sink inside the cubicle eliminates this. It supports menstrual cups, it supports general hygiene, and it supports religious practices like ablution for Muslim women. It's a multi-purpose inclusion tool.
Item number 4, the bin. We already mentioned this, but let's be really specific about the design.
Nguyen's study specifies, lidded and lined. It's not just a bucket in the corner.
Right.
It has to hide the waste immediately. It has to look clean. If you open a bin and see everyone else's waste, that is, it's confronting. It's unpleasant.
A proper, touch-free lidded bin restores the concealment that makes the user feel safe. It respects the user.
Exactly.
And finally, lighting and locks.
It seems so obvious, but Nguyen's audit found so many locks were broken or just flimsy. If you are holding the door shut with one hand while trying to change a tampon with the other, you are not liberated. You are trapped.
You're vulnerable.
The lock must be secure, and the lighting must be bright enough to see what you're doing. Remember, menstruation is a visual management task, but it shouldn't be that harsh, flickering fluorescent that makes you feel like you are in an interrogation room.
So let's visualize this whole thing. You walk into the Feminist Park restroom. It's free. There's no turnstile, no keycard. You walk into a private, gender-neutral room. You lock a sturdy door. You hang your bag on a hook. You place your phone on a shelf.
There are free products available on the wall if you need them.
You have a sink or sprayer to wash up. You have a mirror to check yourself. You have a clean lidded bin to dispose of things discreetly.
And suddenly your body is not a problem.
The situation has changed.
Completely. Kellen said that when the body clashes with the situation, we lose freedom. But here, the situation accommodates the body. You walk out of that room, and you are ready to go back to your important life projects.
You're ready to protest or work or play.
You are not worrying about whether you smell or if you stained your pants or if someone heard you. You're just free.
It sounds so simple when we list it out like that. It's just hooks and mirrors and bins. But the impact is so profound.
It is. It validates the menstruator's right to exist in public. The space says, we expected you, we know you exist, and we want you here.
So we built the blueprint. But we have to ask the big question. The so what? Why isn't this already the standard? We noticed in the Nguyen study that business districts had better facilities. Why is that? What does that tell us?
It connects right back to who the city values. If we only prioritize these facilities in places of commerce, we are explicitly saying that a menstruator is only valuable when they are a consumer or a worker.
When they're generating value for someone else.
Exactly, but the Feminist Park values them simply for existing. It asserts that you have a right to the city even if you aren't buying a latte to get a bathroom code.
And Dooley and Chopra discuss safe spaces as not just being about physical safety from harm.
But emotional safety.
Yes, freedom from the gaze, freedom from judgment.
Freedom from the anxiety of passing as non-menstrual or concealing. A truly feminist space provides emotional safety by removing the constant low-level stress of navigating a hostile environment.
So for the listener who is nodding along, thinking, yes, I need this, but also thinking, I just live in a normal city with terrible toilets. What can they do? What's the takeaway?
I think there are 3 levels of action here. First, just do your own audit.
Become a citizen scientist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Next time you are out, look for the MFPT features. Look for the hooks. Look for the bins inside the stall. Notice the lack of them. Once you start seeing the design failures, you cannot unsee them.
It's like putting on glasses for the first time. Suddenly you see the hostility in the architecture.
Second, advocate. When your local councils or city planners talk about sanitation or public hygiene, push for the language of menstrual equity.
What's the difference?
Hygiene implies it's just about cleaning up a private mess. Equity implies it's about rights and access and public responsibility. Ask your local businesses why their restrooms are customer only. Ask your city council why there are no public toilets in residential parks.
And third.
Challenge the silence. Holst's study found a massive lack of menstrual education. We don't talk about this stuff because of the shame, but if we don't talk about our infrastructure needs, they won't get built.
So bring the private into the public.
Exactly. Talk about why you need a bin in the stall. Talk about why the lock matters. Make the invisible needs visible.
You know, we started this whole deep dive with a moment of panic. That feeling of being trapped by your own body because the world wasn't built for you. But after going through all this research, from the philosophy of the body to the nitty-gritty of toilet audits, I'm left feeling I don't know, weirdly hopeful. Because these aren't impossible problems to solve.
They aren't. Not at all. We know how to build a shelf. We know how to install a hook. We have the technology. We just need the political will and, I think, a fundamental shift in perspective.
Designing a toilet isn't just plumbing.
No. As Kellen puts it, if we want freedom for people to engage in their important life projects, we must stop treating their bodies as a private problem.
We have to treat them as a public responsibility.
It's a public responsibility.
So designing a toilet is designing for liberation.
Precisely.
I want to leave you with one final thought to mull over. We talked about the feminist park as a physical space, right? Hooks and walls and sinks. But as we move more and more into digital spaces, the metaverse, digital avatars, online communities, how do we ensure we don't just replicate the neutral male subject there too?
That's a good question.
If we can erase the body in the digital world, do we also erase the needs of the body? Or do we finally find a way to honor them without the physical constraints? Something to think about next time you log on.
That is a whole other deep dive.
It certainly is. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the architecture of equity.
It was a pleasure.
Stay curious and keep noticing the design of your world. We'll see you next time. This knowledge is a tool, really. A tool for seeing your city differently and potentially for helping to change it.
It's been a really insightful deep dive, I think. This document provides such a vital framework, especially for projects like the Feminist Park Project that are trying to build something fundamentally different. It shows just how interlinked urban design and social justice are.
It really does. But it also shows the scale of the challenge, right? It requires sustained effort, real commitment, and a genuine willingness to shift power dynamics in how cities get made and managed.
Definitely. It makes you think about how we ensure those voices, the ones that have been excluded, are actually heard and centered.
There's another quote from Sarah Ahmed that feels relevant here.
Go on.
She says, "If you have to shout to be heard, you are heard as shouting."
That's powerful.
It makes you ponder, doesn't it? How can the design of public space itself work differently? How can it amplify the voices of those who've been historically silenced, ensuring their needs are met without them having to shout just to be noticed?
How can design itself listen? That's a really provocative thought to end on.
A lot to think about.
Indeed. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.